my good fortune to read as a young man autobiography of Yogi, like many of you. And I found that I felt a very strong connection to Yogananda and became very swept up in his explanations and his vision of our potential as souls to merge back into God. And I was very enthusiastic as a young American. I was a can-do kind of person. But I found in the spiritual life that my can-do attitude towards the physical world didn't always apply to self-improvement. I thought that when I read the chapter on Kriya Yoga and that you could attain samadhi in a relatively short period of time, that, number one, this was for me, and two, it probably won't take that long. Whatever they say, I'll do it faster. Which, of course, optimism is a good attitude. But I found it very difficult. And so I, through a series of circumstances, which is a longer story, found my way to Ananda meditation retreat. And came on over a weekend and found that Swami Kriyananda was giving classes. And I knew, as soon as I met Swami Kriyananda, that I was in the presence of somebody who knew what I wanted to know. That he understood this process of the spiritual life and could help me and anyone who wanted to listen to understand more clearly the spiritual realities of discipleship, sadhana, and ultimately oneness with God. And I noticed as he spoke that there was something that he said quite commonly. He said, and so the truth is, whatever. The truth is. And in the beginning I was a little surprised by that, or maybe that's not the right word, but you see, I'd grown up where instructors told me what they thought the truth was. But I discovered after some years in school that they didn't always speak the truth. And I certainly knew adults who, because we were always taught, you should speak the truth. But the fact is that I personally didn't always speak the truth. Wasn't always convenient. And also, I noticed that oftentimes many people would do all kinds of storytelling in the name of truth. Sometimes we call these white lies. They just make something up that's convenient. I think, I can't remember exactly who it was who said this, but they said the people who tell white lies eventually become colorblind. People completely lose track of their ability to understand even what is factually truth, separate from some higher truth. So when I heard Swami Kriyananda saying the truth, speaking about the truth, I became more aware that he was representing something that wasn't just him. You see, in religion, most people represent a set of beliefs. But truth is not a set of beliefs. Yogananda described truth as that which is in reality, that which corresponds exactly to reality. Well, what is reality? We get a lot of stories about what reality is. Every religion has a story about the creation. And they consider that to be the real story, the reality. And if we were just, wandering through the universe and landed on planet Earth and saw all of these different stories, we might wonder, well, which one's right? And thusly, if this one's right, every other one is wrong. In Western thought, we're taught to think that way. There's right, there's wrong, there's truth, there's lies, There's only one truth, and everything else is a lie. But in the Eastern tradition, we see that there is a greater understanding about truth. Truth has many facets. One large truth with many facets, like a diamond. A diamond can be one, but it has many faces. Has all of these different ways that you can look at it, and according to the light that's shining through it, and the quality of your vision, and many other adjusting factors, that truth can look very different. So in yoga, we describe God as Satchidananda. Sat. Sat is truth. And we also talk about Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. What's Sat? Sat is truth. That truth is that which exactly it corresponds to reality. What is the reality? Well, we know it's a reality that we can't come up with our minds. You can't think your way to ultimate truth. There has to be some other way to get past opinion. See, opinions, you go to school, you get the professor's opinion is that, these theorems equal these results or these effects on society or whatever the subject is. And there's, how many ologies are there? Biology, cosmology, ology. Ology is the study of. So in Western thought, we're taught that you can think your way to understanding everything if your mind is just open enough and big enough. But as a practical reality, we find that many experts write about things that in the belief that they're correct, when in fact they're completely not correct, or mostly at least partially incorrect. So, for example, there was a long period of time when people thought that the world was flat. They were so convinced that the world was flat, believed that that was the truth, that they killed others who didn't believe it. And if we think about it, in today's world, we find oftentimes people will become so confident of what they believe that they will then seek to impose that belief on others. And then they will act in ways that are not, clearly not, connected to any kind of higher truth. It becomes mob mentality. It becomes some kind of lower form of, I'm right, you're wrong, and my stick is bigger than yours, so bam, bam, bam. And we do this to ourselves. We create views about ourselves that aren't actually truth. For example, we think that, we think that we're men and women. But is that the whole truth? It must be part of the truth, but the larger truth is that we're souls. What is a soul? Individualized spirit. What is individualized spirit? Individualized expressions of God. So in essence, we are God. We are expressions of God. We are not men. We are not women. We are something much broader than that. So when I heard Kriyananda talking about truth, and so the truth is, I began to realize that truth is something that is beyond thinking. It's something that you have to connect to inside yourself in order to have a direct experience of it. And this is the essential difference between the yoga teachings as an approach to understanding truth, is that we emphasize experience. And through that experience, we then have beliefs, rather than having beliefs and hoping that we might have some kind of experience. So truth is that which corresponds to reality. What is reality? Infinite spirit. Satchidananda. Ever existing, ever conscious, ever new joy. This is the reality. And that infinite reality has manifest as the creation is. That truth, that ultimate truth, that infinite truth, came into the creation. It became finite. It became limited. And so you could say that truth and lies are all a part of God. Therefore, it's all true. It's true that you lie. But it's a lower truth. There's higher truths, infinite spirit, and lower truths. As a practical matter, a bigger person can beat up a littler person. It's true. Probably most of the time. But it's a lower truth. Because the higher truth is that a smaller person with right intelligence, with right energy control, can't defeat a larger person. So we live with all kinds of definitions about ourselves, things that we've accepted as truth. I can only run this fast. I can do math, but I can't do cooking. I can do this, but I can't do that. I can be only this happy. I need this in order to fulfill myself. All of these things that we add onto our mental picture of ourselves are not the true definition of who we are. They're a temporary limitation that we've put on our current circumstances. Most of us are familiar with the idea of karma. We think that, well, we come into this world with a certain karma, and things are just going to be where they're going to be. And in a certain way, that's true. But Yogananda said, one time he said, okay, you tell me what the absolute worst astrological day for me to do this thing, to accomplish this task is, and then I will accomplish it. Because as souls, as representatives of the divine, if we can reconnect to that divine infinite potential, we can access freedom from the limitations of karma, no matter where things stand today. And we see examples of this in the lives of, we've seen them at Ananda through these years, how circumstances and people's lives change dramatically because of their conscious connection and relationship with God inwardly. And the reason that these things happen, the reason that all of those people have decided to have that inner relationship, is because they were inspired to do so through Master's writings and through Swami Kriyananda's explanations and expressions of those truths that simply say the knowledge of our connection to God is not achieved through the intellect. The intellect can guide us in the direction of connecting to God, but it can only take us so far. Ultimately, as Yogananda described, our place of connection to God is a point of intuitive perception in our hearts. That's our connection point to God. And that heart space is connected to the spiritual eye. And so when we open our hearts, our true center, our heart center, and then we connect it to the spiritual eye, we are connecting to a mechanism of intuitive perception, soul perception. This is how we can know truth. The only way to directly know truth is through this intuitive knowing. So when I met Swamiji and I heard him speak, and he said, and so the truth is, and then described some principle of the spiritual life, I recognized in that moment in my own being that it wasn't a question of whether what he said was true, so much as my ability to connect to that truth. It's not enough to say that love isn't important because Jesus or the great masters love. They love because love is important. And then we take that example from them. when we connect directly to truth, you can explain it in many different ways. You can express it in your life. You can understand it through other people's lives. But you can only experience it in your own personal connection. Sometimes when we meet people, we feel a connection with them. What is that connection? It's intuitive. It's not just, oh, I like your hair today. I do, it's quite nice. But that's not the point. When you see someone who visually appeals to you, if you only see that, you're saying, oh, well, I like your body. But we know that they're not the body. So there's, well, I like that part of you. I may not like the way you speak. I may not like the way you act, but you look nice. If we want to see people's truth, we have to feel their spirit. When we meet people, feel their spirit. That's the way to connect to people. I had an amazing experience. Many years ago, I was on a trip with Swami Kriyananda, and he spoke in a very large hall. I'd say there was about 2,000 people there. And he walked in, and as I watched him walk in, he was just, there's a man walking across the stage. And then he stepped up to the podium, and he paused. And before he spoke, and during that pause, somehow I perceived that he had gone from being here to somehow being everywhere in the room. That his spirit, his sense of self, had reached out to embrace every person in the room. And I know from many years of listening to him speak how common it is for people to think, well, he's talking just to me. He's answering the very questions that I have in my mind. But the way that can happen isn't because a quote-unquote man named Swami Kriyananda, who's an intellectual giant, has good words to say. His spirit, his attunement to that thought, to that truth that we are all a part of, it reached out. He was able to connect to it on that larger level. We want to live that way. We want to live more connected to truth on that larger level, rather than just the little truth that we feel through our personalities in our daily lives. When we practice meditation, we are opening up that connection to that larger truth. And then when we relate to people, we want to express that truth. That truth is always beneficial. That's one of the great guidelines that we... So for example, this is an example that Swamiji's used many times. When you go and you see someone who's ill and they're in the hospital, it might be factual to say, oh, wow, you really look bad. You're really looking sick. But that's not the most truthful way to express the moment, because that would make them feel, oh yeah, I'm sick. Ugh. That's not positive. So we don't want to lie. We don't want to say, wow, you really look fantastic. We can't say that either, because that wouldn't be truth either. So we have to creatively learn to express the truth of the moment. The highest expression of our interconnection to positive energy, to expansive caring, that we can get in this place, in this time, in this moment. What does God want to say through me? Ask God. Ask Yogananda. Ask whatever that connecting, focusing point that you use, and seek to attune your thoughts to this larger truth, this infinite truth. And then you'll find that creative thoughts may come to you in which you can say in that moment, you look so much better than you did yesterday, if you had seen them yesterday and they were looking better. Or, there is a classic saying in America when I was growing up. It was, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. It's better not to say anything than to lie. And the more we attune ourselves to truth, the more we will begin to, as Patanjali taught in the yamas and the niyamas, non-lying. The soul in a state of truth will naturally express truth. We are naturally truthful. And we are being unnatural when we take on deception, negative deception, limiting deception. Take this on as a practice. Seek to speak the most positive, highest truth that you can in all interactions, and connect the truth of your life experience as much as you can, and in ever deepening ways in meditation, to this infinite side, this infinite truth. Recognize that truth, that is your true home. When Sister Gyanamata passed, Yogananda said, Sister Gyanamata was Yogananda's foremost woman disciple. And he said when she passed, he said, I watched her go out into that infinite watchful state. And her last words were, oh, the joy, too much joy. We have no idea how big infinite joy is. It's just too big for the mind to grasp. But that is our true home. And we want to live in that joy, live in that truth. Ananda Sangha. That's the very meaning of our family name. The bliss of God. And our whole lifestyle is dedicated to sharing that inner joy with each other and with whatever part of the world that God gives us to share in. Live in that joy. Connect yourself consciously ever more fully to that infinite truth, that Sat, that infinite truth. Let that energy live through your life, and then your whole life will be, as Swami Kriyananda was saying, the truth is. Let your life be the truth is. The truth of Spirit living through this form. Ever more perfect, ever more connected to the reality of Spirit. Namaste.